Welcome
Potato.
back to the randInt podcast with Raffy and Chandra and potatoes. Hooray!
Yay.
Okay. So this time we thought, we always talk about, hang on, how many, 21 seconds in, AI and everything on this podcast. But you know what we haven't done? The most topical thing that seems to be going around, which is AI gonna take my job? And we've never really actually sat down and chatted about it. So I thought in this episode we would do just that. What do you think?
That sounds like a plan. I wonder
Yeah.
if AI will be doing this job.
Well, okay, that's a great place
Have
to
you ever
start
tried
because,
Notebook LM?
yep,
It is amazing. Generates a really good podcast. Good
yep.
for if you're trying to read something but kind of don't really need to read it, but just want to put it on in the background. Amazing. Takes the written thing, makes it an engaging little podcast to put in the background. Not bad. Not bad.
And also there's been like Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, that's the guy. I think he's trying to do some stuff in podcasting, like AI podcasting, where it's like, you have a virtual avatar that's like you. And then someone else was trying, I think it was like Chase Jarvis. It was one of the, like, the internet personalities. They're not as popular these days, like, et cetera, where they were trying to essentially make like a AI avatar with all their work, so they would respond like them,
Nice.
and basically them at scale, sort of a thing. Yeah, so
I
it's
think if it was
interesting. And
like, if we did that, those bots would just talk about AI, Tesla, Bitcoin, and Apple.
well, and just like before, they'd be like, potato. Why? I don't know.
Of course.
Potato. And it's just, oh no, you know what would happen? The entire podcast would be just like random digits because it's called random. Yes, by sheer chance, we have AI approved our podcast. Because it's
And
even
then all the
written
AI
like,
and all of the AI listeners will really like it because it just truly is rant in very original content.
yeah. Yeah, so
7, 9.
yeah, I see we've gone with primes. First prime anyway. Whatchamacallit? What is
Yeah, so
your overall view?
yeah. Well, I guess, with all things there are pros and cons. But the way I see it is a new tool and it's changing at a fairly rapid pace. And one of the things that reminded me about this is, have you ever seen that video meme of Will Smith eating spaghetti?
Yeah.
It first came out like 2 years ago, and it looks like really like messed up when he's just like eating his own hand and just like looks really, really weird and fake and not even close. This is like 2 years ago. Then you look at the latest ones, and it's Will Smith eating spaghetti like normally with an appropriate number of fingers, like all correct lighting, or doing it correctly. It is kind of amusing that that's become like a benchmark of AI. Imagine your legacy is, yeah, I'm the guy that's a meme of eating spaghetti of when the robots could take over.
Especially because, like, of all the people, it's like Will Smith. He's been a TV star, he's been a rap star, he's been in movies, and like I'm sure he's done 101 other things. I think he has a YouTube
He'll be
channel, but
remembered
it's
for
him.
being, the guy on the spaghetti meme.
And it's like, it doesn't matter what you personally put in effort into. It's like Will Smith eating spaghetti, someone thought up, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, remember when 3D modeling was a thing, like 3D games and whatnot. And it was always the rubber ducky. It was always a yellow rubber ducky. That's like, and then what is it? 3D printing is that little boat. It's always the test is like a
Really?
little,
Okay.
yeah, it's this,
Right.
it's a little plastic steamboat. That's the defaults. And whatever, and like, in programming, it's hello world, right? Like it's always hello world. That is the
Or in
benchmark
my
of,
case, it's hello potato.
but yeah, so Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah. But if you go
Well,
by the
actually,
Will Smith eating spaghetti index, like you can really see
this is the new
the
Big
change.
Mac index.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's, yeah, it just really like shows you just how much stuff has changed. And yeah, certain aspects of language models have slowed down and etc. But the other interesting thing now is with coding starting AI coding starting to be getting better and better and better.
Oh yeah.
It'll be interesting to see because that's going to change the, I mean, it'll change the speed of things changing as well. So that rate of change should increase even more, which would be kind of interesting and means who knows where it all goes, which leads to both exciting and scary possibilities.
Well, I think this is where, like, there's been fundamental shifts before, right? Like, as in, industrial revolution, and it
Mm,
was like, it's different this time, right? And there's been this, every time there's a mass change, and one that I didn't appreciate was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, like the trend towards electrification, which I know, like with
mm,
EVs, everyone's like, oh, electrification is coming. It's like, no, no, the big trend happened then. And it was like,
yeah,
General
we put
Electric
up
and
power lines.
well, not it was even just anything. So just how if you have AI in the name, you get funded. So supposedly the same thing happened with electricity because there was even the generation was new, right? Like as in how do you
Mm,
best
mm,
generate electricity hadn't been solved. So
mm,
there were all these companies. It came up on like a podcast or a book that I was reading recently, and I was like, I had never considered that. Yeah, like you know how it's like oil companies like oh this like they're killing the
yeah.
world, but energy or at least transportable locally usable energy was another revolution because before
Mm,
that like you didn't have like commodified oil that was so abundant, like it was like candles and shit, you couldn't drive machinery with it. Now like the whole oil thing was like well you the like binary code is to computers. It was like the single unit of measure that powered industrial revolutions, right? Like you pour oil in and you get mechanical output. And the unit, the battery was oil in whatever,
yep.
a few different ways. But yeah. And then electrification was this big thing where, because it could have gone other ways. This is like, I remember having this thought years and years ago, which was, in New York, right? There is a steam um, generator that actually pumps pressurized steam into the city. That's why you get like those manhole covers that have like the steam blowing out. So they're heating. And I'm like, well, it didn't have to be electricity. It could just be compressed air. Like you can convert one form of
Mm,
energy to another. Like we could have just had pipes of compressed air doing stuff, for mechanical goods. But electrification was the big thing.
proper steam
Um,
pipes.
yeah, well, I mean, like it's just a form of transferred energy, right? Um, and that obviously like I mean if you think about it, this is like the end game of that electrification point. Like
Mm,
you had electricity being transferred, electricity to mechanical power, electricity for whatever, and then computers came in and they were like the first ones were rolling pins powered by I don't know what, but I assume electricity, but could have been anything because they were like little punch card things, right? And then you get to like no, everything's on computer, on device, like
mm,
electronically typed, electronically done. And now it's like electrification's other end is, well, we're going to where the brain is, it uses, ATP and like action potentials for energy, like for the platform of thinking. So we're coming back to that baseline of even where biology is, it uses electricity for processing. And we are getting to electricity from energy source to the unit currency of thinking, right? In
mm.
both analog or organic models or inorganic models. Um, and so it does feel like,
Turns out at the
whilst it's a
moment the organic ones are a bit more efficient.
well, I think the organic, like as in people or animals, I think the big difference is that they're adaptable to various forms of energy. Like as in at the moment, like, you and I can go and get food and choose what to think about. The difference is like electricity has to be in pure electricity form. It can't be like ingested as chemical bonds and converted. Um, and then decision, whether that's a randInt generator in your brain that's giving you free thought or not, it like that does not exist in the LLM version yet. Like it's not like you don't have the
Yet.
random buzz of subconsciousness. Yeah, exactly. Yet, right? Um, but it does seem like, whilst it seems like a new fundamental change, like I was just thinking about it in the context of it is like the end product of the electrification age coming full
Mm,
circle, right? So it's
interesting way of
actually
looking at it.
right? Like it's like if you think of it as an exponential product, sort of an exponential change thing, right? It's the slow build up now getting into like if you look at the last 30 years of computing, right? And if you think
Mm.
of it as electrification, that slow momentum, this is the, and now we're at like, the velocity increase was like, oh, internet, all this stuff, right? But now we're at the true takeoff point where you're like, oh shit, this is where it really becomes like a straight line up. And
I think the
to
interesting thing
me,
about it is it's like, wonder where the line goes.
yeah, yeah, right. Like for me, because I was like, it almost like you said this as well, right? Like it almost felt like it came out of nowhere, and I was like, exponential functions don't work like that generally. There is a slow build up. Where did that come from? And that's where I kind of went to like electricity being the or electrification being the thing, and then you see the slow compounding over time thing happen. Um,
Mm.
but it's like I use AI all the time, and you do too because it's AI. And in fact, like just imagine like this podcast, we talked about like AI agents replacing this, but just the background blur that's happening in my
Mm.
thing is like an AI powered engine, which is way better than what it used to be. And even our voice processing, we're using shitty microphones as compared to like we had a better microphone when we started, and now we've devolved into like these little clip-on things and your AirPods, and they do a better job because of the signal processing that's all AI driven. So there is immense things that are happening that are just genuinely make these little frictional things that in the day to day much simpler. But
Mm.
I also do think that there's all these like if you look around, there's all these little tasks. Like say for example, like a doorman, right? Like they're nice to have because there's someone there and they greet you, all that stuff. Totally replaceable right now with like a smart door. Like it can greet you, it
We
can
have
open the
them.
door, you know, right? Like, so what happens when like that's clearly a job function that can be very easily replaced in terms of the pure functionality of it. But is that replicatable? Like the presence of like there is something about being greeted by someone, right? Like it's not a one
Well,
to
we've
one.
kind of been able to do that, but we've decided, nope, like certain buildings still have one because it's just nice.
Mm. Yeah. So in a way, to me, it feels like it's like the engineering version of things. Like, if you give engineers, like, I don't know, make car move, you'll get the most optimal car moving for fuel input, right? And AI seems to be like, well, if you extrapolate everything down to what it's physically like the core components, it will do the
Mm.
thing, but it's almost like a bad photocopy. It's not like a engineered car is not the same as a fun driving car because the
Mm-mm.
sensations are different. And this, like, does that make sense? Like, that's probably the closest analogy I can come from. Is like if it was,
I think where it'll be interesting though is where we go from engineer me a better car to engineer me a better way from getting from here to there.
explain.
So rather than thinking of it as, yes, if you ask for an engineering version of a better car, you're going to get a more efficient, car that is safer, blah, 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 but loses the whole fun of the actual driving a car part. But then what I think is going to be interesting is that the question won't be make me a better car. It'll be make me a new way of getting from here to there. And so reimagining the way that we do certain things. And I think that
Mm.
might be an interesting one.
Okay, but
Like there's a whole bunch of companies which have unsuccessfully so far tried to have some sort of like voice agent pendant that sits around and listens and does stuff for you in the background. Haven't seen any successful implementations of that, but that's something new that was not possible until very recently to be able to be done.
okay, so this comes back to like new jobs will be created, sort of a thing, right? Even at scale, like just say you take that example of this is something new that
Mm.
wasn't possible before. The number of people required to build that is
Mm.
far lower, right? And let's just
Yes.
say that that takes the role of either a PA or if it's just meant to be a listening thing, like trusted friend or I don't know, flogist, right?
Reminders list.
Yeah, reminders list or whatever the other thing is. Either it's replacing current automation, which doesn't count in terms of like, we're trying to
Mm.
focus on jobs as a specific thing here, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I don't see how the pace of change is so quick and the ability to replace things to a good enough degree, right? Like I think if you're
Mm.
at like the top 10% tier, I don't think AI is quite there yet. And weirdly, like some of the mechanical stuff, like say tradespeople and whatnot. But I don't think we've
Mm.
got AI for robotics nearly as far as we have AI for thinking. Weirdly, right? Like like
But I think that's where the AI for thinking will then accelerate the AI
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
robotics. And that is something that I've sort of watched loosely, that the robotics field just seems to be moving quicker now.
Yeah, so I was talking to one of the guys at Stanford when I was last there, and he was saying my thing was like, how there is HTTP and all these open protocols for the internet, like for communicating ideas and words and text, movies, whatever, right? There
Mm.
isn't like a unified language for robotics. And he was saying, actually, there is a startup in Palo Alto right now that's creating basically just the open source version, which is like the open language for all different platforms to communicate on. And I was like, oh, okay, well, clearly that's going to go to zero, but it'll develop technology
This sounds
that,
like the XKCD comic, if anybody's read it, where it's like someone's like, oh no, there's 14 competing standards for this one thing. I will make one to rule them all. Next comic, next slide is like, there are now 15 competing standards.
that I think what these guys were doing is basically giving away the only thing that you would IP.
Mm.
Like yeah. Anyway, I looked at it a little while ago and I was like, yeah, it'd be interesting, but I can't
I
even
mean,
in
the
the
jobs thing
optimistic
is
scenario.
interesting because on the one hand, you're like, oh, I can't see how a bunch of jobs that might be lost will be replaced. Then on the other hand, we did go from like agriculture being about 30% of people's employment down to 3% now.
Yeah,
And
but we replaced
we
that
don't
with
have
healthcare.
but we don't have like a 27% unemployment rate.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. But I think
Now, was that
agriculture
good or
got
not? That's a different story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder though because
That's
you
like
could
a third of the people in the world losing their job.
yeah. So I'm trying to articulate the how to say it's like, for example, so the shift from agriculture to industrial age, which is kind of where it happened, right? Like the
Mm,
industrialization of agriculture, manual labor, and all that stuff. Um, it still kind of went from like say you could plow a field, right?
mm,
And I don't know, you became an auto worker in like Michigan or whatever, right? It's yeah, there's new skills, you have to use new tools, but you can kind of be upskilled to it. There's like an entry level and a progression system, right? But I feel like with AI, it's like, a lot of the entry level analysts or entry level anything, that's gone. Like, as in, it's actually more work for me to try and outsource it to someone who's new and having to train them versus getting ChatGPT to do it.
I think that is one of the interesting things because if it gets very good at doing base level jobs, it's very hard to then train up. And this becomes a problem even in medical
Yeah.
fields as well. Because if, for example, the appeal thing is, okay, medical people should only do the complex stuff, which kind of actually does make the most amount of sense. Well, how do
What do you
you
do for the
get
next
good?
generation?
You get good at doing the complex by seeing lots of normal and lots of complex. I just think perhaps there'll just be a different way that there's an approach to that education.
Well, so
Don't know what
this
that
is
is.
where, yeah, because it's in. So there's two things that really come to mind for me on that note, which is, a lot of stuff is digital, right?
Mm,
And digital to me, in a way, is the same thing as like languages that were only spoken. So it's like we don't know how the pyramids were built because it never
mm.
got written down, right?
And they
So
have like
it's
hieroglyphs
yeah, so they have hired, but they kind of use that for documenting how much rice they had and how much gold they had. They didn't
and how
and
many
what the
pictures of
sun god
cats
was
they have.
doing. Yeah, yeah, but they didn't actually document how they built the pyramids. The instruction manual was like verbally passed down. So at best, we look at them and we're like, well, this is the engineering tech they would have had. They built that, and now we try to figure it out. But there is no direct. No
Mm,
one could tell you because no one passed it on enough along the ages, right? And so that's like one thing is that the more virtual we become and the less hard copy we have, the more prone we are. I don't know at what point we lost the knowledge for ancient Egypt building pyramids. Like, did someone come and kill off a bunch of people, or what happened? Like, but something must have happened because it
mm.
never got passed on, right? And it would be a pretty cool thing to pass on. You wouldn't be like, we built that, nothing to talk about here, right? Like, they were like,
It does
those
seem like
losers, we
a
don't want to know.
better not build anymore.
Yeah, right. Like of if that is the monumental thing that your civilization's built, it's not like you go, oh, now let's not talk about that. We
It does
like
seem
that
like the
brick is in
human
the
thing
right.
to do, though. It's like, all right, let's get rid of everybody who knows how to do this. So,
But you know what I mean. So it's kind of like so we have this trend before AI comes on, where everything's become more digitized and virtual, right? With which, yeah, cool, you can have backups and whatnot, but it is like how many websites have gone offline, how many broken links there's like this huge. There's like some study showing like ever increasingly things are
yeah.
just going offline. We just don't notice because we've just generated so much new stuff. But that base of where it started is disappearing. So at some point, the Will Smith meme that we talked about, the original will no longer be, so no one will know where it came from or why, because
It'll
the
be an antique.
no, it won't, it will just have disappeared because there is no way for it to be an antique. So there's no way, there is no relic mechanism
I
in
think it'll get recreated, though, into
huh?
something. It'll get recreated into a form. Like paintings get recreated digitally now.
Yeah,
Same thing.
except so
Whatever the
so
next form is, I think Will Smith's
the
meme will live on
so
specifically.
there's two things here. So a, it was that where it's like a pyramid's the biggest example, but then there's also regression where if you don't use stuff, right,
Mm,
because you don't have to use stuff, you forget how to use the stuff. And the evidence was, I think it was Guns, Germs, and Steel. I might have mentioned this before. It was like the indigenous Aboriginals in Australia. So one big population. Sorry, it was not one big population, but if you take the entire population across all the different nations they had, right? And the land bridge between Australia and Tasmania got cut off by rising sea levels. So they had the same standards. And then, however many years later, you looked at them because someone did. The level of technological sophistication with like didgeridoos and boomerangs on mainland was way higher. Like the ones in the Tasmanian
mm,
population had regressed to not even basic fishing because the tool makers died off and they didn't replace it because the use case wasn't there for this thing. But and their population just wasn't big enough to
mm.
sustain tech progress. Um, which is where it like so to come back to jobs, it's kind of like if you lose enough of the low level stuff, I wonder if you get highly specialized people who don't know how to do the basics.
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
like you almost can't tie your shoelaces, but you know how to run a marathon. And you're like, it's like right now sitting here you go that's just haha funny, right? But I wonder if that happens because we just assume this other thing can do the basics for us, right? But
Mm,
then you don't. It's like trying to do matrices without learning like addition. At some point that base level knowledge of how things work is like for you to be a true expert, to understand the stack, to kind of like if that's where this goes, right? Like people just become super subspecialized. You can't have all of it, but you need to have some idea of it. And there's already studies showing like GPS reduces people's capacity for orientation.
mm.
There's already studies showing that in what 2-3 years of LLMs that people's capacity for like brainstorming, like yeah,
True.
going down. Yeah.
Well, I think the other part of it is though is I wonder what the new jobs created will be. Like, I don't think when we're in the farming era, anybody was like, "Well, that's all right. I'll build cars." What are cars? I don't know, but I'll find out soon.
No, they wanted a faster horse and they
Yeah,
missed by
that's
a
right.
mile.
Yeah, they did. So that's the other part of it. I'm like, yeah, the current set of jobs that are available doesn't make any sense. And yes, as AI does take some jobs, then that will become a jobs gone. And honestly, no idea what the new jobs will be. And I think
Well,
that's
okay.
part of that change.
Do you think at a let's just say it continues its exponential trend in the current direction that it is, right? Right. Which is it's getting better quite rapidly every 2 years. Like 2 years
Mm,
ago, no one knew what ChatGPT was, and now every single assignment is essentially written by ChatGPT. So let's just assume that, and it's net good, and everyone's using it, everyone has access to it, no one's monopolized it and done all sorts of bad things to it, right? Like let's just
utopia, right? Continue.
closer to utopia. Let's just say more people with good intentions have done good things rather than people with bad intentions. I know we've talked offline
Yes,
about
because that's common.
well, actually, like say
But sorry, let's
nuclear, right?
continue. Yes. Yeah, yeah.
There are evidence where that has happened. Let's just assume and just be
Sure. We'll
optimistic
go with that.
here.
All right.
The end question is, do you think there will be jobs, like fundamentally, the notion of what it is to be employed right now,
Mm.
right? Like, do you think that would exist? Because it's not that hard to imagine, given like now that mechanical products like robotics is getting the focus. Like, NVIDIA's got like the 3D models with true physics to replicate warehouse movement and whatnot. So they can do training data on synthetic data. Like, all the stuff is happening. Like, that background core
Mm.
stuff is getting built out at a decent clip. And then you go, okay, it's going to be like robots are like fumbling to walk to, no, they can do parkour. Uh, and it'll be pretty rapid. It'll just be like LLMs Mark 2. In which case, it's like, well, most of your thinking will be done. I'm sure there will be some jobs, right? Like, but I'm gonna say jobs will become like billionaires. Only like some fraction of a population will have them,
So,
right?
yay.
Exactly, right. So it's like,
I don't
what does the
know.
model
I'm still
become?
not. I'm not convinced that the whole uh, trading something of value for something else is going to suddenly disappear because that's all the job is, right? You're just trading
No,
something. So just barter, right? Some people barter their time, their skills, their knowledge, their items for something else. And we just happen to use a dollar as a convenient exchange mechanism for barter.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think barter is fundamentally something that'll be there. Like if you have something you
Yeah,
need,
which is a job.
but so I would say so this is where it's like it's either utopia or dystopia or both at the same time without realizing, which is I think like it's not too hard to imagine where the if you play the cards in a certain way, you get to a world where energy is abundant, food, shelter, and clothing are abundant. Therefore, there is no Maslow's hierarchy. It's like Maslow's half-buried pyramid, where you've covered the bases, like the bases of safety and all that
Mm.
is done. So you're really left with like self-actualization at the end, right? Like or like that love connection and whatnot, right? Which is where I'm like, okay, so what do you trade for that? And the other part of it is like as AI gets faster and faster, and what you saw. Remember when? So when Chandra was over in Melbourne, we went to visit my parents, right? And I showed them how to
Mm.
turn on ChatGPT to Bengali mode. They both
Mm.
independently walked to their rooms and started talking to ChatGPT, right? Like these are grown ass people who know better than this, but they were like, we have a new best friend, right? And like that was I was like,
Maybe the new
like I've been
job
talking
will be humans to go in and go, oh, wait, give me a phone. Get off.
like do you know what I mean? Like if you make it just the point of
Mm.
Maslow's hierarchy, I mean, lots of people navel gaze and it doesn't end well for a lot of them. you know, like existential nihilism is quite a thing, and I don't think
Mm.
we're there as a society to face that. So do we become kind of like do we become weirdly like religious zealots because you kind of have to face the existential questions like everyone's actually a philosopher or like or do we get like a much more
Mm.
polarized society where you don't have to do anything, right? You can just sit there and entertain yourself, right? In which case, if that's the direction we go, like if you follow that through, it's like, well, if you're just trying to entertain yourself, why are drugs illegal? Because they're no longer a productivity thing. It's like, well, it's just fun, and so do we just go into that spiral? Like, it's really hard to imagine, but you
It
can
is.
kind of see like the sequence of cards has gone from like, nah, that would never happen to like, oh, there is a sequence. If these things happen, that's where we end
Mm.
up. Like the possibilities, like the probability index of these things are no longer like infinitesimally small. They're like, they're getting to like not probable. They're definitely not in the probable side, but I could see a sequence and I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Well, the other really sci-fi way to think about it is it's like, all right, well, the technology is starting to get better to be able to replace certain things that humans can do. And that's relatively new. Um, so I guess, first it was being able to replace some of the physical labor people do. Now it's the thinking knowledge is being
Hmm.
replaced or being able. And then some of the subtle motor movements will also be replaced. And so you're like, but the human's now being overtaken. But what's to say that the human actually stays the same as well? because over time we've been upgrading the humans. Like I do cataract surgery. That literally is an upgrade. You know?
Did you see? Oh, I sent it to our friend Rahul. I'll send it to you. There is a fully autonomous cataract robot.
Ah, no good. Trust me. No good. No good. Later problem. Let's give it 5 years.
He's like, shit, this was meant to be a plus 2 years problem, not an
Damn
hour
it.
problem.
Yeah. This is not in the spreadsheet. Wait, AI shouldn't take our jobs. It's terrible. We should go on strike. AI is dangerous.
Yeah, true, true, true. But
But yeah, so that's the other thing as well. It's like, oh, interesting. Wonder how like humans change too.
well, see, this is where I'm like, oh, I think there's like a, somewhere along the way, so like some real about the Fermi paradox. If there is infinite distance, number of stars in the universe, let's just say, right? How come we haven't seen aliens yet? If life is like a random occurrence, is it like, oh, we're divinely special? And the other part is like, or does society always get to a point and wipe itself out? Or like, the three body problem says like no one speaks because no one knows if there's a more powerful predator out. So everyone keeps quiet, not wanting to show their cards, right? So those are like the three possibilities of the Fermi. And so one of the things is like, or life just hasn't evolved to that point. Like everything's like worms and stuff, and no one's at interstellar space or interstellar communications. Um, so one of the interesting things is like, yeah, if you upgrade, like, so going back to like the Maslow thing, right? It's like you got safety, all that stuff. Because that's what, like, in terms of why I'm bringing that up for a job, it's like to cover those baseline things is why you go to a job most of the time, right? Like, and some part of meaning, all right. But there's way more other things like community, hobbies, whatever. There's like way more ways of getting meaning, but job is one function of it. So that essentially doesn't need to be done. And then the next part up is like, well, connection, all those things, right? If you just go back to strip it down to exactly why you even bother trading time for money. But then if you look at the upgrades and we talk about like the pendants and this, that, and the other, like, well, you replace connection with AI tool. It's not biological reproduction anymore. Do we have a species in a few cycles?
Mm.
Okay,
And yeah.
because genuinely there is a trend in if you ignore Elon as the
Mm.
billionaire trying to spread his seeds, um, it generally is the trend towards like, there's economic
Mm.
uncertainty, there's geopolitical unrest, there's already effect on the population where there is a population decline, right? And there is already studies showing that for teenagers, the most meaningful conversation they've had is with an LLM, not their friends,
Mm.
right? So then you go, oh, like, are we essentially like, because then if people are getting
Well, perfect.
annoying,
Then there's no need for any jobs for people.
well, yeah, actually, that's another good point. It's like there might just be less people to actually. Oh, yeah, that's a Japan problem, isn't it? Like, yeah.
Mhm.
But
Look to the
generally
future.
speaking, what's your feeling? Because I'm like, we could probably navel gaze about this all day, but
Mm.
yeah. So those are. It came out slightly. Oh, one of the things I wanted to actually mention, not to make it too negative, was that there are a whole bunch of pros to it as well. It's like, do I really want to go through work emails rather than have AI summarize it and just give you the important ones and filter out spam? Absolutely don't want to do that. And if it's
Mm.
anything repetitive, I would hands down give it over. But
Hello.
partly also it's because I've also done the 10,000 reps in those things. I
Mm.
just like don't need the 10,000 month, but I probably
Yeah.
should have done the 10,000.
To know what to get rid of.
Yeah. But yeah, general feelings, optimist, pessimist.
Oh, I think optimistic could be optimistically like self-imploding or optimistically exciting, but well, sounds fun.
It's an explosion, but I have a smile.
Yeah, got a front row seat. Got my margarita. I'm coming along.
I think I weirdly am. I sound pessimistic, uh, but I'm like weirdly optimistic in that I think after like industrialization, there was this giant separation of what like work became, especially in like say like America, Australia, like more sort of developed worlds, this core part of identity, right? Like what you do is like after your name, literally the next question most people ask you, right? Uh, Whereas if you go back to like, you remember that book, The Crucible? It just almost gets done in like every single.
Oh, yeah. Can't remember
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's fine, but it's the greetings is like, good morning, right? Or cake comes from this thing where it's like a good man, right? uh because it used to be that it would be so and so name. It was like goody Proctor would be good woman Proctor, because it wasn't just whatever you did. It was, you almost had like societal status as a good person or a bad person. I like, like the social credit score sort of thing, right? So it's almost
See,
like people's
everything comes back.
identities. Yeah, it was, people's identities were less job, more whether, it was like a value of character, right? And I wonder if we start going back to that, where it's what are
Mm.
your interests is your next thing, because you don't have to have any interests. Like, does that make sense? Like having other things becomes the rare thing, because you could just sit and, what do they call it these days, bed rot, if you wanted. Like, food would be like relatively abundant, entertainment would be abundant, your essential dopamine hit of choice would be abundant. So then you having an interest uh, becomes like the thing that defines you, rather than any job per se. And of course, if you want to be like frontier model engineer, or insert some thing that needs to produce the
Some new
data
job
for
that we
the.
haven't even thought of.
Well, I mean, I think you get to be a true explorer in whatever
Yeah.
field you want, right? Like, whether it's literally exploring new spaces or
Mm.
experimenting with new data, because all these AI things require vast amounts of data to make the inferences to do the next thing. And you can automate parts of it. And I'm sure, like, robots and whatnot. But if you wanted to explore, that would be the thing that it wouldn't be good at. So, like, even if you had like an all powerful AI, that's like the thing that it would want is like, oh, okay, you're already going to do it. You already have intent. Go explore the boundary edge case things. So you get to really find a narrow, weird niche and just triple down on it. Like, that would be interesting. Well,
I think it's definitely one of those things where it's got potentials for harms, and as we see the harms coming, can try to put guidelines around it. But it's one of those things that's kind of going to happen anyway, and it will be interesting to see how it can be used to, yeah, positive, more positive than negative. But just like any tool.
okay, that was weirdly one of the most philosophical debates slash chats we've ever had on the
I
on
know.
the podcast, without actually kind of going like Tesla, Bitcoin, keyword.
Tesla, Apple.
No, Samsung, Android, Gemini. Hey,
Yes.
hey, hey, that's right. We're calling it Gemini do my job, not Siri, because we know it can't.
Hey, it could
Or maybe I
try.
should call it Chat. Yeah, maybe I should. Or it'll be like, oh, can I ask Chat GPT? Because I can't.
Hey, nothing wrong with it. And
With
on
that,
that note,
if you have any thoughts, like, it feels like, I would love to hear perspectives on this, because I think we've kind of taken a very meta view of it. Meta, LLM, llama. um,
advertising.
um, and sponsor us, Meta. We'll take your money.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to see how our listeners feel about it, because part of it, the unknown, is, I'm sure, scary, right? Like, I just want to know
Mm.
what people like. You and I, well, you especially, are well and truly into the AI stuff, and I'm perfectly involved enough to kind of have like an idea slash, it's less threatening in a way. But yeah, I would really love to know, more so than any other episode, what the listener thoughts are. So if you have any comments or anything like that, please do let us know. And of course, wherever you are listening to this, please do rate the podcast so we can have more interesting guests. And if you like this sort of a chat where it's more of a debate on key topics, let us know, because this was like, yeah, kind of enjoyed this one.
Hmm. Interesting topic.
Yeah. All right. With that, we will see you in the next episode.
Till then,
Bye bye.
potatoes.